I never imagined that a small misunderstanding could grow into something that would shake my life to its core. At first, it was just whispers, little comments here and there about how I couldn't be trusted, that I wasn't entirely honest. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself people talk, that rumors come and go, and that eventually it would all fade away. But it didn't. Gradually, those whispers turned into messages, short notes at first, polite enough to ignore, but insidious in the way they spread. Then the messages multiplied, each one repeating the same twisted version of the truth. Soon, it became a story, a narrative about me that was entirely false, yet somehow convincing to those around me. Friends I had known for years began questioning me. Even colleagues who had once respected my work started to look at me with suspicion, their eyes filled with doubt where there had once been trust. I remember the exact moment it hit me. I opened my phone one evening to see a flood of messages, all from people I cared about and trusted, each one echoing the same accusation. They said I had done something I never did, something that made me seem small, foolish, and dishonest. I froze, staring at the screen, feeling a mix of shock and disbelief. It wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was deliberate. Someone had decided to destroy my reputation, to make me appear as the villain in a story I didn't even know existed, and the person behind it was someone I had called a friend, someone I had trusted more than anyone else. Her name was Maya. She had always smiled, laughed, and appeared harmless. But behind that friendly mask, she was carefully crafting a story where I was the villain and she was the innocent wronged party. It was a cruel, calculated game, and I had been unknowingly cast in the lead role of shame and ridicule. I felt my world shifting, cracking beneath me. My first instinct was to confront her, to demand answers, to let the anger and hurt spill out. I imagined shouting, accusing, and forcing her to face what she had done. But then I stopped myself. I realized that reacting in desperation would only make me look unstable, weak, and frantic. And people who thrive on lies and gossip feed on desperation. They twist it, exaggerate it, and use it to their advantage. So instead, I chose patience. I stayed calm. I watched. I paid close attention to every interaction, every message, every subtle move she made. I started collecting evidence quietly, meticulously. Every lie she told, every false story she shared, every manipulated fact, I documented it all. I saved screenshots, noted timestamps, and recorded conversations. Each piece was a building block that I knew would one day reveal the truth. I realized that if I wanted to protect myself and reclaim my life, I had to be smarter than she was. I couldn't respond with rage. I had to respond with strategy. I had to let the truth work in my favor, silently and patiently, until the right moment came to show the world who I really was and who she truly was behind that charming smile. It began almost imperceptibly. A friend who had always been close, someone I had trusted with my secrets, suddenly started pulling away. She didn't say much at first, just a hesitant voice and careful words. I heard some things. I don't know if I can trust you. Those words hit harder than I expected, sharper than any insult. My chest tightened, anger bubbling beneath the surface, but I swallowed it. I knew that reacting without thought would only play into Maya's hands. Patience, I reminded myself, was my only weapon. Maya's plan was already unfolding. The ripples of doubt she had started were spreading fast. People who had once laughed with me, shared dreams and private moments, were now glancing at me with suspicion, questioning my every word, every action. And the pain of being distrusted by people I cared about, it was suffocating. It gnawed at my confidence, leaving me unsettled, unsure of who I could turn to. As I tried to make sense of it, I began noticing patterns. Her lies weren't random. They were calculated, precise. Each story was carefully designed to attack my character, my integrity, and even my smallest accomplishments. Every compliment I had ever received, every little success I had worked for, she found a way to twist into something negative, something that made me look petty or deceitful. It was subtle sabotage. She even interfered with my work, planting small obstacles so that her narrative seemed believable to anyone who observed from the outside. I realized I had two paths. I could confront her blindly, lashing out in anger and risk looking irrational, desperate, and emotional. Or I could wait, observe, and respond with a plan that would protect my dignity and reveal her lies without me stooping to her level. I chose the second path. I began gathering proof meticulously, turning my attention to the evidence that could expose her. Screenshots, timestamps, records of conversations, every lie she told, every manipulated fact, every exaggeration, I kept it all. I watched patterns emerge, noticed inconsistencies, little cracks in the web of deception she had spun. The more she tried to control the narrative, the more her lies contradicted each other. And then it hit me. Lies, no matter how carefully crafted, are fragile. They cannot withstand scrutiny, especially when the truth is laid out patiently, clearly, and without emotion. I realized that truth, when presented strategically, is unstoppable. I had seen the first sting of her attack, and I understood now that her power was not invincible. I only needed the right time, the right approach, and the evidence to tip the balance in my favor. Then came the day when everything changed, the moment it crossed a line I couldn't ignore. It was no longer subtle whispers or casual doubts, it became personal. She began spreading false rumors about my private life, twisting intimate details into stories that were cruel and untrue. People I barely knew were messaging me, hesitating, questioning, asking if what they had heard was true. The messages felt like knives, sharp and invasive. I felt exposed in a way I never had before, vulnerable, humiliated, and furious all at once. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection as if searching for some sign of the person I used to be before all this began. My eyes traced every line of tension, every flicker of frustration. I whispered to myself, almost in disbelief, "How did it come to this? How did someone I trusted decide to destroy me?" It was hard not to feel betrayed, not to feel the weight of having my life twisted by someone who had once called herself my friend. But anger alone wasn't enough. I realized that letting rage guide me would only make me reactive, and reactive people always lose. If I lashed out without thought, I would give her exactly what she wanted, another chance to manipulate the narrative, to make me look like the one out of control. What I needed was something different, a strategy that was precise, calculated, and undeniable. A plan that would protect my dignity while exposing the truth. I also understood that confronting her privately was useless. If I tried that, she would twist it, spin it, make me seem unreasonable, and the story would only continue. No, this had to be public, but not in a way that appeared as desperation or anger. It had to be clever, methodical, and irreversible. I needed to reclaim control, not through shouting or threats, but by letting evidence and truth do the talking. That night I made a decision. I would not be a victim. I would turn the tables, and I would do it with strategy and precision. For days, I immersed myself in planning, going over every detail with precision. I wrote down everything I could remember, every lie she had told, every inconsistency I had noticed, every person who could verify the truth. Each note, each observation, became a piece of a bigger puzzle I was assembling. I knew that if I wanted to confront her effectively, it couldn't be impulsive or emotional. It had to be calculated, clear, and public, but without appearing aggressive or vengeful. I had to rise above her tactics and prove the truth through intelligence, not anger. I realized that the most powerful approach would be simple yet dramatic. I didn't need to attack her directly, call her out with insults, or retaliate in kind. Instead, I would create a situation where the truth itself would shine, undeniable and impossible to ignore. The lies she had woven would unravel naturally once exposed to facts and evidence, without me needing to stoop to her level. I began reaching out to friends who had been subtly pulled into her web of deception. I shared the evidence I had gathered privately, letting them review it carefully, not pushing them to take sides, but giving them a chance to see the truth for themselves. Some were hesitant at first, unsure of what to believe, but the clarity of the evidence spoke louder than words. It was important that this step remained discreet. I didn't want anyone to feel manipulated, only informed. Once I had built that quiet support, I turned my focus to the public presentation. I drafted an open message, a carefully worded narration of events where I calmly outlined the lies, presented proof, and highlighted inconsistencies in her story. I framed questions that only someone twisting the truth would struggle to answer. I made sure the tone was neutral, measured, and completely devoid of rage. I knew that emotional outbursts would only distract from the truth. Instead, I let the evidence speak for itself, confident that clarity, logic, and honesty would dismantle the false story she had spent so long building. It was a plan built on patience, precision, and restraint. Every step, every word was designed to ensure that the truth would be undeniable, leaving her manipulations exposed without me needing to shout, argue, or stoop to lies. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of control returning, a quiet certainty that justice, even if delayed, was within reach. The day I finally posted it, my heart was pounding in a way I hadn't felt in weeks. There was a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation, a tension that kept me pacing, checking my phone every few minutes. I wondered how people would react, whether they would see the truth or still cling to her twisted version of events. Within hours, messages began flooding in. People who had doubted me, who had questioned my character, reached out, apologizing quietly, as if realizing for the first time that they had been misled. Friends I had feared I'd lost forever started reconnecting, sending words of support and reassurance. It was overwhelming. The relief of seeing the truth finally recognized, of hearing voices I thought had turned against me now speak in understanding. And Maya? She was silent. The silence itself was deafening. There was no defense, no angry rebuttal, no attempt to twist the story further. Her carefully constructed web of lies had been stripped away in plain sight, leaving her exposed. People began to question her motives, her honesty, and the very nature of her character. Her charm, once so convincing, no longer held power over anyone who had seen the truth laid out clearly. I didn't gloat. I didn't post mocking comments or call her out directly. I didn't need to. The collapse of her narrative spoke louder than anything I could say. I simply watched, quietly, as her manipulations unraveled and the truth settled firmly in place. Every lie she had spun, every rumor she had whispered, was now powerless against the clarity of evidence. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of calm and vindication. The truth had won, and I had not only reclaimed my reputation but also my peace. Justice didn't arrive all at once. Even after the post, there were people who resisted believing me, clinging to the version of the story they had been fed for weeks. Some tried to defend her, insisting that she couldn't possibly lie, that there must be some misunderstanding. It was frustrating, even disheartening, but I knew that patience was part of the process. Truth doesn't always strike immediately. It takes time to sink in, to break through the fog of deception. Slowly, piece by piece, the evidence began to speak for itself. Screenshots, messages, inconsistencies, everything I had collected over weeks, formed a clear and undeniable picture. The careful way I had narrated the story, the calm tone, the way I had presented facts without anger or exaggeration, left no room for doubt. People started seeing what I had known all along. The lies she had spun were just that. Lies. Even Maya's closest friends, those who had once defended her blindly, began to notice the cracks in her facade. She had no words left, no clever twists to cover the truth. Eventually, she was forced to apologize. First, it was awkward and hesitant, almost as if she was saying the words without believing them. Later, it became public, but even then, her apology sounded hollow, empty of sincerity. Watching that, I felt a relief unlike anything I had experienced before. It wasn't about gloating or revenge. It was the sense that fairness, truth, and honesty had finally prevailed. In reclaiming my reputation, I realized something far deeper than just clearing my name. I had learned the power of patience, the importance of strategy, and the dignity that comes from rising above lies. I understood that sometimes the most effective response isn't immediate confrontation or anger. It's measured, calculated, and guided by truth. And in that moment, I felt a quiet but profound sense of victory, knowing I had not only defended myself but done so with integrity. Looking back, I realized that revenge isn't always about loud confrontations, dramatic showdowns, or public humiliation. True power lies in using intelligence, patience, and truth to protect yourself while exposing dishonesty. It's not about satisfying anger. It's about reclaiming control and letting reality speak for itself. Some people feed on fear, chaos, and the drama they create, enjoying the way others stumble under their manipulations. But calmness, evidence, and honesty hold a quiet strength that anger can never achieve. When approached thoughtfully, the truth doesn't just reveal itself, it dismantles lies, leaving no room for denial or distortion. The lesson is simple, yet profound. When someone tries to destroy you with lies, never sink to their level. Observe, plan, document, and let the truth unfold naturally. It doesn't just restore your reputation, it exposes the liar completely, stripping them of power and preventing them from manipulating others ever again. And as for me, I learned something even more important. No rumor, no betrayal, no deception could ever define who I am unless I allowed it to. Standing up for yourself isn't about fighting blindly or reacting in haste. It's about acting with wisdom, patience, and unwavering integrity. That is how you win, not just against lies, but against the fear and doubt they try to instill. And in that victory, there is a sense of freedom and strength that no betrayal can ever take away.